Thank you. It's encouraging to hear from each of you your support for the legislation. As I mentioned in my opening comments, I think there's been a lot of give and take and going back and forth and trying to build a bill that is reasonable, rational, and has support. And gauging from the various industries and academia that you represent, it's clear that we've struck the right chord. Now, we need to work a little bit with the administration here so that we can get a positive yes answer from DOE, but we'll work on that. Mr. Isaacs, I want to specifically note your comments and how the issue with the helium bill and how we were really on the edge of something bad happening if we were not to have dealt with that situation in a timely manner, and how that kind of feeds into not only this debate about how we proceed with our critical minerals, but hopefully making sure that we're connecting the dots. Again, whether we're talking about the auto industry or semiconductors, the acknowledgement that these critical minerals, which I think the only thing that a lot of us used to know about them was that they were difficult to pronounce and they all seemed to end in an but beyond that, what are they? What do they do? And I think that there's clearly a growing awareness, but we have more to do in helping people understand the significance and the importance of these critical elements. So the connect with what we did with helium, I think, is particularly important. Mr. Sims, relating the situation with Molycorp, I think, is helpful to us here on the committee. 500 permits, 15 years to kind of work everything through should tell us something. But I also appreciate you saying, look, that not all of this was government inaction. In fairness, there were other factors in play here. I am assuming that you have read our 40-page bill, and I would be curious to know what your reaction is to the permitting section of the bill. Do you think we hit the right note here?
Senator Murkowski, I think you did. I mean, I think when Congress looks at any of these issues related to reforms or permitting processes, you have to look through that process. You have to look through the lens of what's politically possible as well. This bill does not seek to make any major changes in underlying law like NEPA, et cetera. But there are a lot of things that can be done without those changes being made. It was highly controversial, but there are a lot of things that can be done in the process itself, and I think the bill points to those. I think at the end of the day, whatever the law says about permitting, it really comes down, as we found, to whether you can build a level of trust between the permit applicant, the regulator, and other stakeholders at the table. Having said that, to have, as your bill does, call for performance metrics of how the process is working is very important. To have, it points to, it encourages folks to look creatively, I think, within the confines of current law as to how to make this process better. One thing that could be done now is, for example, to have the various considerations by federal agencies of NEPA applications to be done concurrently as opposed to consecutively. Now, there are cases when that doesn't work, but in those cases where it does, that would make a very big difference. I'm sure most folks in my situation would say make a huge difference. That doesn't require any change in fundamental underlying law. So I think your bill is encouraging folks to be creative on both sides of the table as to how to make that go faster.
Let me ask you, Mr. Conrad, from the Alaska perspective, and I appreciate you pinch hitting here for Mr. Swenson. This is the time of year that Juneau is socked in. Maybe it's because the legislature is in session, but that's neither here nor there. You hit on several initiatives that the governor has advanced in terms of statewide assessment, which I think is critically important. I'm curious to know if you think that when it comes to the data that is so important in making sure that we have collected sufficient amounts of geologic data to really form out the actions moving forward when it comes to accessing our critical minerals. Also, if you could speak to the permitting issue that Mr. Sims has just addressed. When we think about the hurdles to accessing any of our minerals in the state of Alaska, there are hurdles that are out there, but I think the most significant that I hear from people about is the permitting process. If you can speak to not only the data collection and whether or not we're doing a good job there, and also from a permitting perspective, if we are moving ourselves up from that dead last position that I mentioned in my opening comments in terms of getting responses on our mineral opportunities.
Thank you, Senator. The states have also often been referred to as the laboratories of democracy, laboratories of invention, and I think Alaska is a perfect example of a state that has taken great strides to address both of those issues. To first identify the importance of the need for modern data and how we are able to access that data, which is sometimes a matter of resources and sometimes a matter of technology. And often a matter of working cooperatively with other stakeholders, and particularly our federal partners, to achieve the type and the level and the quality of data that we need. Alaska has made great strides in that area, has identified not only the need, but how to go about finding this data, addressing this data, and the innovative approaches that are necessary to make that happen. On the permitting side, again, Alaska has had great success in using a cooperative approach within the state itself in developing an interagency approach to how permitting should be handled within the states, to coordinate among all the agencies that are critical to the development and the permitting of a mine, especially a large-scale mine. And again, I think has demonstrated that that kind of an approach at the federal level would be very helpful in achieving the type of coordination that we need to move that process forward and more effectively. And we believe that S1600 addresses both of those matters in significant ways. And if we can couple that with some additional funding to assist with some of this work that we need to do, particularly in the data area, we'll be well on our way to making, we believe, some significant strides here.